Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. How are you all today? Okay, let me get my things set up. Make sure that the page is still, live feed is still running. Okay, very good. Hope everybody is well. So today's topic is rather interesting. When the eight wind blows, eight winds. So this eight winds is what I think Buddhists in many cultures have heard different suttas about it, and in some cases there are even stories around it. So today we're going to go through one of the sutta, and we will learn more about it straight from the sutta. But in brief, it is basically a set of four pairs. Let me just check on the. How are you today? Okay, audio is sounding fine, and okay. So the feed is working. Okay, good. Let me just check on the comments in case if there's anything that I need to look into. Nope. Okay, let's get started then. Yeah, so it is basically four pairs of opposites in a way. Yeah. So it starts off with gain, loss. So of course, gain would be gaining what you want, and loss would be losing what you want. Gain of things that you seek, loss of what you seek. And then the next two pairs, are quite interesting. The first two is about your reputation. The next two is about people's speech towards you. According to my teacher, these two pairs, both are about what people say about you. But the first two pair, is what people say in a way behind you, not in your face. That means what is generally said about you, your reputation. The next two pairs, the third pair, is what people say directly at you. And the pair would be one which is good things said about you and bad things said about you. Good, pleasant things that people say about you, praising you directly at you, and criticizing you, blaming you, in your face. And the last pair would be pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain. So one set. So four pairs, and each of them have two pairs. And then one is what is pleasant, the other one what is unpleasant, what is agreeable, what is disagreeable. Okay, so let's get started. I'm trying out this auto scene switcher, see whether it works. So by right, it should switch scene. Doesn't seem to switch. Let me try. Okay, now it auto switch. So this is a feature that I discovered about the X-split. So like now it switch over, right? So sometimes when I'm explaining, then I will switch over to the whole scene. So instead of clicking around too much, I just have to switch windows, and then shortly after that it will just switch over. And when I want to explain the text again, I just go back to the browser, and then quite quickly or in a short while, then it will switch over. So it's pretty nice. So this sutta is called Lokavipatti, the failings of the world. And inside it lists out the 8 things that happen in this world. Yeah. This sutta is found in the Anguttara Nikaya. The Anguttara Nikaya is also known as the numerical discourses. In the Agamas, is known also as Ekottara Nikaya. So there are 2 translations for this collection. One is called the numerical discourses. The other one is called the incremental discourses. Yeah. So there are, in the Pali Canon, there is the Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka, the rules and regulations, the precepts. Yeah. Then the Sutta Pitaka, the discourses, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, the commentaries. Yeah. Comprising mainly the explanation of the teachings. So then we have within the Sutta Pitaka 5 collections. The 5 collections are usually listed in this way: Digha Nikaya for long discourses, Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length discourses. Then the third one would be the Samyutta Nikaya, the connected discourses. The 4th, the Anguttara Nikaya, the one we are looking at today, the numerical discourses. And the last collection, the Khuddaka Nikaya, the small text. So the last one comprises a lot of series of small texts. And looking at the content in the small text, the Khuddaka Nikaya, most would agree that it comes from a later date. Yeah. So in the Chinese Mahayana canon, then you find that there's only 4 agamas. The text in the 5th Nikaya, the Khuddaka Nikaya, is also found in the Chinese canon, but separated. So I've read before about how this is probably because when the suttas were collected, how do I put it? When the masters from China went to India and they collected the suttas that were present at that point in time, the 5th Nikaya was probably not compiled yet. So the text was in loose form, yeah, separated from each other. But today the sutta we're looking at is called the Lokavipatti. Yeah, it is sutta, failings of the world. The word Loka, yeah, means the world. Yeah, so Lokavipatti, failings of the world, loosely translated. And it's from the Anguttara Nikaya, book 8. Yeah, book 8, sutta number 6. So let's take a look. The version we are using today was translated by Venerable Thanissaro Bhikkhu, an American monk. So you can find this translation from the access to insight.org. I'll post later. So let's take a look. So it starts off with the Buddha addressing the bhikkhus, monks. These 8 worldly conditions spin after the world, and the world spins after these 8 worldly conditions. So this is quite an interesting opening. Yeah. In some suttas you see the opening, thus have I heard. In some of the collections you don't see it. But we usually say that it's a matter of recitation. Yeah, so they sometimes just recite the part that is the main content. So these 8 worldly conditions spin after the world, and the world spins after these 8 worldly conditions. So there are 8 things in this world that that in a way is active after the world, and the world as a result also move. Yeah. So the 8 conditions is moved by the world, and the world move these 8 worldly conditions in a way. Yeah. So what are these 8? Yeah. So what are 8? Which 8? So the translation here is slightly different from the terms I used just now. So keep that in mind, that different translators may use slightly different terms. Yeah. Important thing is to look at the scope itself. So the first 2, gain and loss, that's the same. The next 2, status and disgrace. In some other translations we use the term reputation and disrepute. So what people say about you in general is basically our reputation. So whether it's good, then it's good reputation; bad, then it's disrepute or bad reputation. The next is what people say directly at you. In this case, it's interesting because I think this is seem to be flipped. So you notice that the pairs is good, bad, then here bad, good, then good, bad again. Yeah. So I'm not sure whether the translation itself is consistent or not. But in some cases, then they put praise and blame. So censure is to blame. Yeah. Sometimes they use the word criticize. The other one is praise. So again, in a pair, and one is agreeable, one is disagreeable, one is pleasant, the other one is unpleasant. And the last set, pleasure and pain. Pleasant and pain. So these are the 8 worldly conditions that spin after the world, and the world spin after these 8 worldly conditions. Yeah. So in other words, these 8 things move this world, and this world, I think, in a way referring to us sentient beings. We hanker, we go after these 8 things. Yeah. We are moved by these 8 things, and that's why in some texts it's described as the 8 winds of change. So the Buddha go further to describe monks. This for an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person, there arise gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, pain. Yeah. So then for a well-instructed disciple of the noble ones, there also arise gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, and pain. Yeah. So what this difference, what distinction, what distinguishing factor is there between the well-instructed disciple of the noble ones and the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person? So this paragraph is saying that these 8 things that happen in this world, it happens for the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. In other words, it happens to those who has not learned Dharma. Yeah, the Chinese we call it 凡夫俗子, 凡夫. So it happens for both those who are unenlightened, and also happens to the well-instructed disciple of the noble ones. In some translation, it refers to the well-instructed noble disciple. Yeah. So here the translation is well-instructed disciple of the noble ones. So just well-instructed, yeah, well-instructed. So have not reached arahanthood. But in some places they talk about those who have reached arahanthood. So the thing is that whether you learn Dharma or not, whether you are unenlightened or not, or you are enlightened or unenlightened, these 8 things can happen to you. Yeah. So then the Buddha says, so in that case, if both can experience these 2 sets, these sets of 8, what is the difference? Is there a difference? Yeah. What is the distinction? Is there a distinction? Yeah. What is the distinguishing factor between those who are well-instructed disciple and the uninstructed run-of-the-mill? Oh. So the monks reply, for us, Lord, the teachings have the Blessed One as their root, their guide, and their arbitrator. Yeah, so this statement is a declaration of their faith in the Buddha. Yeah, the acknowledgement of the Buddha as the teacher, that whatever is taught, they will go to the Buddha, they will defer to Buddha as the source, the root, their guide, and their arbitrator. Arbitrator meaning, for example, sometimes 2 different persons may have different opinion about a certain thing. So who is going to arbitrate it? Who is going to come in, step in, and declare which case is it? And after declaring it, they will then accept that as the outcome. Yeah. So in this case, they have the Buddha as the arbitrator. Meaning, if they have any dispute about certain key points or teachings, they will defer to the Buddha. And so you see in a lot of suttas, it starts off not with the Buddha, but it starts off with some monks having some discussion, and sometimes not having agreement. And then in some cases, it's about behavior, some cases about views, some cases about the practices. Yeah. And in all cases, then one of them would go to the Buddha to get the Buddha's opinion about it, or get the Buddha's stand about it. And having heard that, they would then abide by it. Now there are also some monks where after the Buddha has made clear what is kusala, what is akusala, what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, and so on, they don't agree. And they're not happy after hearing, and then they walk off. Yeah, there are such cases also. But in this case, these monks, they take the Buddha as the arbitrator. A bit different nowadays. Nowadays, sometimes online or even in person, when there's some questions about the teachings, and then you highlight certain suttas, yeah, that in this sutta the Buddha said this. So by that principle, then by right, that interpretation is right or wrong. Yeah. Nowadays, what I observe is, if you cite a certain sutta and it's actually from the Buddha, people may not readily accept it. Yeah? Some people may even come up with reasons and excuses, tons of it, and say that, well, but that this sutta is from a long time ago, yeah, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And there's also some people who, some time back I encountered. These days, maybe not so much. They don't even bother replying you. You cite certain suttas to to highlight a certain key point. The person just ignore the point, ignore the sutta reference, and just continue instead citing some teachers. This teacher said this, that teacher said that. This is quite different from the monks in those days. So what else did they say? It would be good if the Blessed One himself would explicate the meaning of this statement, having heard it from the Blessed One, the monks will remember it. Yeah. So this is something that I've highlighted a few times. I'm going to adjust it because I find that the text seems to be a bit smaller. Yeah. Okay. So where were we? Yeah. So the monks explained that, or replied that, it would be good if the Blessed One himself would explicate the meaning. So basically, it'd be good if the Buddha can explain, and having heard it, that the monks will remember it. So this is also again very important. Asking for teachings, you must have faith, and then after that you must lend ear to listen, and after listening you must remember. Yeah, three crucial steps to having knowledge of the teachings. It's just knowledge. Yeah, and again I want to just briefly highlight. In many classes, students tend to want to understand immediately. Some things cannot be rushed. I'm not saying that understanding is wrong or that it's bad. It's good, but you need to listen. First of all, yeah, you must have faith, and then you must listen. Then you must remember. Yeah, you must remember, and then you can retain it. And when you retain it, then it is yours. Yeah. And after you retain it, then you are able to use what knowledge you have to do reflection, and that will help to deepen the understanding. If while listening to the teachings we immediately try to think about it, to understand, then what will happen in the end is, while explanation is given, we are deep in our thoughts, and we are thinking about different viewpoints. Yeah, we're trying to understand it as we are listening to it. So then as a result, we may miss out certain key points that is crucial to our understanding, and missing that part, we form our own understanding, our own conclusion. So this is something I observe in some classes, in some students. Yeah. So from here you can actually see, yeah, having faith, and then listening, and then remembering. So the Buddha replied, in that case, monks, listen and pay close attention. I will speak. Yeah. So sometimes some students ask, so when we attain no self, when we attain the wisdom of no self or not self, does it mean that we stop using the word I? Yeah. Now, of course, from here you can see that, okay, the Buddha also used I, referring to the monks, or using words like you, and so on and so forth. Some people suggest that this is due to translation fault. Yeah. But there are others who say that, if you look at all the different texts, it's quite evident that the Buddha spoke quite naturally. Yeah. Except for referencing himself, many times he will use like third person narrative, like the Tathagata, referring to himself. Yeah, so this is quite unique. Yeah, but one can perhaps say that he will still refer to individuals as conventionally referred to. Yeah, the difference between the Buddha, the enlightened ones, and us is they have no problem using those terms because they are not attached to those terms. They do not grasp onto those terms. They are not affected by those terms. Whereas for us, we are very affected by those terms, any terms. Yeah, so we have difficulty using them. So as you see a lot, the monks responded. Then the Buddha started. The Blessed One said, gain arises for an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. He does not reflect, gain has arisen for me. Yeah. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. Yeah. So this is so he does not discern it as it actually is. So this is for the unenlightened person. And also here the range is quite broad. the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. So that means have not learned Dharma. Yeah, so because he has not learned Dharma, when he has gained something, he doesn't reflect. So he does not reflect. Important. He does not reflect that gain has arisen for me. Yeah, this is a fact. You acknowledge gain has arisen, but you also reflect further. It is inconstant. Yeah, stressful. Yeah, in other words, suffering, subject to change. So this is the standard formula: impermanent, subject to change, subject to suffering. Yeah, but the order is slightly different. Yeah, so he does not discern it as it actually is. In other words, this is actually how it is. Yeah, but the person who has not learned Dharma does not discern the gain to be this way. Yeah, we don't consciously think in this way. Yeah, to reflect is to consciously think about it. Yeah, to ponder about it, to reflect, to contemplate. Like if you consider, if you get promoted, if you win a lottery, you win a lucky draw, yeah, you gain something. Do we automatically think in this way? Yeah. If we have learned Dharma, even if we have learned Dharma, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Yeah. So for most people, we don't. Maybe someone who have gone through a lot of changes in their life, then they may reflect in this way. Yeah. So this is the first. This is first the Buddha talk about the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. This phrase is quite a common one in many translations. Uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. In Chinese, usually translated as fan fu. So the same formula is applied for all the rest. Yeah, so here there's a bridging. So every time you read those translations on any books, usually when they have ... is a form of abridging. Yeah? So it means that the text is actually being shortened. Yeah? It's the same exact text as before, except that one term has changed. Yeah? Loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, pain. Yeah? The rest are all the same. So if we read through, loss arises for an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. He does not reflect gain. Loss has arisen for me. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. He does not discern it as it actually is. So you see, it is not simply reflecting on gain, it's reflecting on loss also. So when good things happen to us, we gain something, we should reflect in this way. When we lose something, we should also reflect in this way. Yeah? Similarly, for the next pair, status and disgrace. Yeah? Or in some translation, the good reputation and bad reputation. Yeah? Or reputation and disrepute. Yeah? So status, I will just read according to the text, but as I explain, I'll use those terms that maybe we are more familiar. So status arises for an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. He does not reflect. Status has arisen for me. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. He does not discern it as it actually is. Yeah. So the same goes for disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure. So all this, and including the last one, which is pain. The last pair is pain, pleasure, and pain. So the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person don't reflect in this way. Yeah. Instead, how does this person react towards them? His mind remains consumed with the gain. Yeah. So instead of reflecting, the person is consumed by it. Yeah. consumed by the gain, his mind remains consumed with the loss, his mind remains consumed with the status, the disgrace, the censure, the praise, the pleasure, the mind remains consumed with the pain. Yeah. So it does not reflect. And the result is the mind is consumed with it. Yeah. So become preoccupied. You gain something, wow, you keep on thinking about it. Maybe you write a post on Facebook, wow, talking about how good it is, and so on and so forth. You lose something, you keep thinking about it, you are affected, your mood is changed, everything. And then you post on Facebook, you complain to your friend, yeah. The same goes for the rest. Yeah. This is how the uninstructed, run-of-the-mill person is like. So when we learn about this, we can consider ourselves. How are we? Yeah, how are we like? Are we like that? To what extent are we like that? Yeah, we can think about it. So he welcomes the arisen gain and rebels against the arisen loss. So the pair. He welcomes the arisen status and rebels against the arisen disgrace. He welcomes the arisen praise and rebels against the arisen censure. He welcomes the arisen pleasure and rebels against the arisen pain. Yeah. So between the pair, he don't reflect on them both. Yeah, the four pairs, he don't reflect. He's consumed by all of them, and then he welcomes. In other words, he delights in the first. Yeah, gain he welcomes. He delights in it. Yeah, he wants it. Whereas the pain or the loss, he fights against it. Yeah, he rebels against the loss. Yeah, is this how we are like? This is how we are like, isn't it? So you notice inside this section here. Inside this section, he welcomes the arisen praise and rebels against the arisen censure. So here the praise comes first, censure comes later. I suspect it should be consistent. Yeah, praise will always come. Praise should come first, then censure. That's usually the Buddhas, when he enumerates a certain list, he's usually quite consistent in the structure. So I suspect this is more perhaps the translation or something. Maybe I can later look at the Pali text and see. Yeah. So he welcomes the arisen pleasure and rebels against the arisen pain. As he is thus engaged in welcoming and rebelling, in other words, as he is engaged in craving for one and being averse to the other, he is not released from birth, aging, or death, from sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair. Yes. He is not released, I tell you, from suffering and stress. So you will notice the last section here, as he is thus engaged in welcoming and rebelling. So this is basically the precursor to what? The precursor to greed and hatred. Yeah. And the greed and hatred is rooted in ignorance, delusion. Why? Because there was no reflection on the way things are. Because one does not reflect on these four pairs, these 8 winds of change, these 8 worldly conditions, so there's ignorance about them, there's delusion about them, and as a result the mind is consumed with it, and one crave for the gain to continue, crave for the loss to end. The desire for the gain, averse towards the loss. So greed, hatred, rooted in delusion, and because of that, he is not released from birth, aging, and or death. So this aging, birth, aging, and death, this is what This is the last section of the 12 links of dependent origination. Yeah, and usually from there, yeah, 生缘老死愁 then 愁叹苦忧恼 so 愁叹苦忧恼 yeah, so 愁叹苦忧恼众苦聚集 yeah, he's not released from the suffering and stress. So in the 12 links, then the standard formula is from the whole mass of suffering, 众苦聚集. Now, as opposed to the unenlightened being, then here the Buddha look at how is it like for the disciple who is well instructed. Here, well instructed is, as I said, in some places is the well instructed noble disciple. Yeah, in most cases, when there's the well instructed, is the noble disciple, which means the enlightened one. So let's take a look. So now gain arises for a well instructed disciple of the noble ones. So gain can happen for them as well. He reflects, gain has arisen for me, it is inconstant, stressful and subject to change. Yes. Again, impermanent, subject to change, subject to suffering. But here it is impermanent, suffering, subject to change. So the order can sometimes be different. He discerns it as it actually is. This is the difference. So doesn't mean that we run away from gain, or because we become Buddhist, we practice, then we are averse towards gain. No, it just means that when gain occur, you acknowledge, you know that gain has arisen. It is not that, oh, those who learn Dharma, gain arise. Did you gain something? I heard you win the lucky draw. Oh, did I win lucky draw? No, I didn't win lucky draw. No, it's not like that. Wow, congratulations, you got promoted. No, I didn't get promoted. It's not like that. The person knows that he's promoted, yeah, but knows that it is impermanent, inconstant, stressful and subject to change. Yeah. He reflects in this way. Maybe he knows, maybe he don't know, but he reflects in this way. And in this way, then he discerns. That means he perceives, he sees it as it really is. The same is done for loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise, pleasure, pain. Yeah. So pain arises. He reflects, pain has arisen for me. It is inconstant, stressful, and subject to change. He discerns it as it actually is. Yeah. So again, the four pairs, status and disgrace, is also translated as good and bad reputation, or reputation and disrepute. Censure and praise, in my opinion, more consistent to be praise and then censure. So, or praise and blame. So it's about speech that is said directly to you. The third pair, fourth pair, or the second and third pair is all about what people say about you. The second pair is what people say in general about you, not in front of you, but the third pair is what is said directly to you. So for the instructed disciple, what happened? Because he discerned it as it is, that is inconstant, that is stressful, and is subject to change. So as a result, his mind does not remain consumed with gain. His mind does not remain consumed with loss, with the status, with the disgrace, with the censure, the praise, the pleasure. His mind does not remain consumed with the pain. Doesn't mean that the person don't experience pain. Doesn't mean that the person don't know what's going on. The person knows. This instructed disciple, or the instructed noble disciple, knows what's going on. From the rest of the text, you see that this disciple has been released from birth, aging and death. So shouldn't just be instructed disciple of the noble one, but rather instructed noble disciple, because otherwise how to be released from birth, aging and death. So the distinction is such an individual doesn't stay, is not consumed by it, not consumed by all these things, experiences it, knows that is happening, but seeing that it is the way it is, that is impermanent, subject to change, subject to suffering, so not affected by it, not preoccupied with, consumed with it, and so towards the four pairs, to the pleasant pair, doesn't welcome it. Doesn't welcome it doesn't mean that you are not happy with it. It means that you don't crave for it. You are not desiring it. Not desiring for it to last, not that you're desiring for it to stay, not desiring for it to happen again. Or rebel against the arisen loss. So that which you have lost, you reflect, that's how it is. And so you are not averse towards it. It's not like, wow, big deal, and then you get so affected, unhappy, and so on and so forth. He does not welcome the arisen status. He does not welcome the arisen status or rebel against the arisen disgrace. He does not welcome the arisen praise or rebel against the arisen censure. He does not welcome the arisen pleasure or rebel against the arisen pain. So as he thus abandons welcoming and rebelling, he is released from birth, aging and death, from sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress and despair. He is released, I tell you, from suffering and stress. So this is exactly identical, except it's a different response. And because of the difference in response, this disciple, he is released from birth, aging and death, from sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress and despair, from the whole mass of suffering, attaining enlightenment, arahanthood. This is the difference, this is the distinction, this is the distinguishing factor between the well-instructed noble disciple of the noble ones or the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person. So this pair here, gain, loss, status, disgrace, censure, praise. So this is quite interesting. The third pair is flipped in certain areas, but likewise over here, praise, censure. So you notice here is praise, censure. So the pleasant one and then the unpleasant one. So then it's consistent. But in some other places like this, then it's inconsistent again. So pleasure, pain. These conditions among human beings are inconstant, impermanent, subject to change. This is a standard formula. Impermanent, subject to change, subject to suffering. So knowing this, the wise person, mindful, ponders these changing conditions. So if you have heard about this, then you should reflect. Is it the case? When you gain something, does it last? Is it permanent? The fact that you go from not having it to having it, that means it is changing. So for it to change from not yours to yours, are we to believe that it will remain as yours forever? Think about it. Desirable things don't charm the mind. Undesirable things, undesirable ones bring no resistance. So the mind is unaffected. So even though it's desirable, the gain, good reputation, praise and pleasure, all these are nice, right? You cannot deny that all these are nice. Let me see. So although these are nice, but the enlightened ones, the mind remains unmoved. Yeah? Because these things no longer infatuate him. Yeah? Doesn't charm the mind. Undesirable ones bring no resistance. He is equanimous, in other words, towards desirable and undesirable matters. Yeah. His welcoming and rebelling are scattered. Yeah. In other words, if you bring that to the full extent, the greed and hatred put to an end. And the reason is because delusion has been removed. Yeah. Gone to their end, do not exist. Knowing the dustless, sorrowless state, he discerns rightly, has gone beyond becoming to the further shore. Yeah, so he sees things clearly, correctly, knowing the dustless, sorrowless states. This dustless, sorrowless state is referring to the state of Nibbana. Yeah, has gone beyond becoming. Yeah, gone from the samsaric cycle to Nibbana. Yeah, to the further shore. The further shore referring to Nibbana. From this shore to the further shore. The term parami or paramita, to cross, to go over to the other shore. And with that, this ends this sutta. So when we share this, we have to bring in one funny story. Yeah. In China, a long time ago, there was this person, I think is Su Tongpo. Yeah, so he is a 才子. Yeah, he's a scholar, very talented person, and he has learned some Buddhism. Yeah, maybe some would say quite a bit. And so it is said that at some point he stayed across some lake or something. Yeah, so and then there was this Zen master across, and one day he wrote this verse. Yeah, 八风吹不动, and then he asked his sutong to send it over. Yeah, so his attendant brought it across the lake, showed it to the teacher, to the master, Zen master, and then the Zen master flipped it around, yeah, and then wrote something on it, and then scroll it back and say, return to your teacher, to return to your master. That means return to Su Tongpo. So the Su Tong brought it back, and then Su Tongpo was like, so what did the master say? He said, oh, the master didn't say anything, the master just wrote something on the back. So he quickly showed me, open up, look at it, 放屁. Wow, got him really upset. So he went over and then asked him like, 我是这什么江南才子，我是苏东坡，我 like that he is a scholar and he's so talented, he has learned so much about Buddhism, when he makes such a declaration, how dare he, scold him and tell him off, saying, 放屁, literally saying like you let wind. Yeah. So, but it is in Chinese language is like a reference to what you say. Whatever you said is air coming out, right? So now he's saying that the air coming out is like the fart, F-E-R-T, 放屁. So it is a denigrating expression, like basically holding what you say in contempt. Saying like, what kind of nonsense, rubbish. Yeah, something like rubbish. Yeah, so Su Tongpo was like really upset. Then the Zen master said, 八风吹不动，一屁打过江. Yeah, do you all get it? I think most of you have heard this story before. Yeah, and it's so amazing, right? Because the two of them are actually, you can see that they are linguistically very talented. On the spot, they can just come up with poetic verses. Yeah, 八风吹不动, that means the 8 worldly winds Yeah, referring to this 8, 4 pairs of 8, that they are like the wind, because in some texts they are described like winds that blow and causes the world to go around, right? So this Suttampo is saying 八风吹不动, that the 8 winds cannot move who? Cannot move me. Then, but the Zen master wrote 放屁, so 屁 is the fart, send it over. Then immediately Suttampo come over, like literally, not just movement of the mind. Yeah, not just movement of the mind, but physically come across the lake. So 一屁, yeah, one fart 打过江, yeah, one fart is all it takes to get him to come over across the lake. Yeah. So with that, the Zen master, in a way, teach Suttampo a lesson that your understanding, your realization is not there yet. Yeah, you are still moved by the 8 winds, not that you have not. You just think that you have not moved. Yeah. So having learned this, we can reflect ourselves. Yeah. Many times when we look at suttas, the suttas talk about how the noble disciple is like. I talk about Noble Eightfold Path, the right way, the right way. Everything is about the right way. The Noble Eightfold Path, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Everything is about the right way. Yeah? In some suttas such as this one, it talk about the wrong way, so-called wrong way lah, but the unenlightened way. Yeah, or maybe we can say enlightened and the unenlightened way. In quite a few suttas, the Buddha described in this way. So we can use this as a self-check, yeah, a checklist. When we encounter any of this, here is generic terms. Gain can be gain of anything, loss can be loss of anything. Yeah, and then the middle 4, the 2 pairs, is about what people say about you. Yeah, it doesn't specifically say, oh, what people say about you on Facebook. Don't have to. Yeah, just you have to learn. We have to learn to apply what we learn in our own life. We cannot expect the Buddha to be so specific to say what Tan Lai Huat, yeah, Tan Lai Huat on Facebook was criticized by so and so. So Tan Lai Huat should do this, should do that. Cannot. If you learn the Dharma, or in fact you learn anything in this way, you will never learn. Yeah, you are waiting for it to be spoon-fed. Cannot. Yeah. So you learn the principle and then you try to apply on your own. If you have difficulty, you can, maybe consult your teacher. If you like, you can also send me a message and then we can discuss. Yeah. Sometimes I may miss some messages. You can have to write another time, or you just send a reminder. So you can use this in this way. Yeah. Go through the list, reflect. Yeah. When something happened to us, we reflect in this way. Like now COVID-19 happened, we can reflect in this way also. Yeah, I mean, for most of us, it didn't happen directly to us, but it's happening in the world. So we can reflect. Yeah, it is surely not directly described here. Yeah, but you can look at it as something that is negative, something that is unpleasant. Yeah, so if it's unpleasant, something that is painful, like let's say because of the COVID-19, then there's circuit breaker. So we can reflect in this way. Yeah, maybe we like, maybe we don't like. Yeah, maybe it's unpleasant, maybe it's pleasant, but either way you reflect. It is inconstant, it is stressful, it's subject to change. But if that's the case, since it's inconstant, then it's a matter of time you'll change. Why am I so averse to it? If it's pleasant, we reflect, it's inconstant, it's impermanent, subject to change, subject to suffering. In that case, why do I hanker, why do I desire it so much? Why am I so affected by it that it preoccupies me? We can reflect in this way. Yeah. But we must reflect in this way before the big thing happened. Sometimes students say, 师父, I tried, but it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Many times it doesn't work. Why? Because we only reflect when after the fact, or we try to reflect when things are happening. When significant things are not happening, if we don't reflect, then how can we expect ourselves to be able to use the Dharma when things happen? It is like studying for exam, like the year-end exam. If throughout the whole year you don't attend class, you don't do tutorial, you don't study, you don't do homework, you don't read up, then during the exam itself, then you try to read, will it work? Definitely not. Olympic athletes, they don't train on the Olympic competition day. They train for 4 years, 8 years cycles before they can qualify to represent. So by the time it is the Olympics, they are very well prepared. Yeah. Similarly, if we were to do the reflection day in, day out, when something do happen, we are prepared. Yeah. We are able to see that, we are able to reflect and see that it is impermanent, inconstant, subject to change, subject to suffering. Yeah. Then slowly, not immediately, but slowly, we become less consumed by it. We become less preoccupied by it, and we tend to be less desiring over that which is pleasant, less averse towards that which is unpleasant. So equanimity at this level is based on wisdom. Not simply telling ourselves, I must be equanimous, but because you have transcended the opposites, then naturally you are equanimous. So that's all I have for today. 放屁 equals to bullshit. Yes. Yeah. Occasionally, sometimes I see this monk is sometimes quite naughty. You all must pardon me. Xuejun Zhang says social media got 84,000 words. Yes. Sometimes, what was I going to say? Thomas Lee writes, 苏东坡，这个苏东坡与佛印禅师，一屁什么扔过江啊？一屁打过江。So let me see. Anybody else have any comments? Yeah. So if there are no other comments, no questions, that's all we have. Then we'll wrap up, and then the Diamond Sutra. We should start the Diamond Sutra at 3:30. Okay. So let's do dedication. 愿消三障除烦恼，愿得智慧真明了。普愿罪障悉消除，世世常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。起立。